Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Swallowed Star 2, Land of Origin. Volume 11, The Xuanhuan Blade Dao. Chapter 422, Sharpening the Blade Part 1. 37th of Volume 11. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. As the highest level lifeform in the infinite Xuanhuan space, Luo Feng's mental processing speed far surpassed his earlier stage capabilities. After having accumulated sufficient insights into destruction and life, his heart was now in perfect harmony with the Tao. In just one day, he created the first version of the Xuanhuan Blade Dao. My Xuanhuan Blade Dao, centered around the Great Origin Destruction System, pursues ultimate destructive power. If I want to perfectly combine the Xuanhuan Life and Death Dao with the Xuanhuan Blade Dao, I need to leverage the strongest advantage of the Xuanhuan Life and Death Dao, infinite energy. This would amplify the power of the strong, creating the ideal synergy. After possessing infinite energy and combining it with ultimate destructive power, it would finally pose a threat to the Xuanhuan ancestors with tenacious vitality. Let's test it. Luo Feng sat cross-legged on an island deep within the Blood Crane territory. With a casual flick of his wrist, his palm transformed into a blade, unleashing a terrifying blade light that tore through endless space-time, cleaving the vast blood sea in two. This first version of the Xuanhuan Blade Dao has too many flaws, Luo Feng frowned. It's only effective for close range, chi locking. Beyond a certain distance, I can't guarantee chi locking. At the level of the Lord and Xuanhuan ancestor, a single movement could cover vast distances. To pose a sufficient threat to enemies, one needs to maintain absolute lock-on within a certain range. Let's test the power of origin destruction again. With a wave of his hand, Luo Feng unleashed a dense swarm of glittering stars, 360 million origin cores suspended in the air, forming an array that radiated an endless aura of destruction. This was a weakened version of the Great Origin Destruction. The control is more perfect, and I can now precisely target the locked area. Luo Feng nodded slightly. Boom. As he observed the dazzling scene of destruction, its brilliance illuminating his face, Luo Feng frowned slightly. This weakened version of the Great Origin Destruction only increases its power by 50%. Even without testing, he knew that the more challenging full-scale version, using 1.08 billion origin cores, wouldn't significantly enhance its destructive power. This version has too many flaws. Luo Feng shook his head gently. The gap between this version and his envisioned Xuanhuan Blade Dao was still too great. Luo Feng sat cross-legged on an island deep within the Blood Crane territory, deducing one version after another of the Xuanhuan Blade Dao. His insight, comprehension, and analytical abilities were terrifyingly advanced, allowing him to unconsciously create over 10,938,103,329 versions without even feeling any fatigue. To put this in perspective, back when Luo Feng hadn't yet broken free from the cage, he attempted to create the Xuanhuan Life and Death Dao over 30 million times, and felt that he had exhausted all possibilities and nearly drained his soul. Now, he casually surpassed 10 billion iterations. I've tried every possibility, Luo Feng said calmly. Creating over 10 billion versions had taken him less than 30 epochs. Among them, 7 versions are the most outstanding. But they still fall short of success. Only through success could the Dao become eternal and immortal, becoming an integral part of a Lord-level lifeform. The Blade Dao, ultimately, is for slaughtering enemies. I'll hone my blade further through combat, Luo Feng thought. His aura rapidly weakened, while the aura of his clone, who was in secluded cultivation on the 19th level of the Abyss of Destruction, surged dramatically. Abyss of Destruction, 19th level. Luo Feng's clone, now at its peak state, finally opened its eyes. Brother Yuan, Luo Feng transmitted telepathically as he emerged from his cultivation cave. I'm preparing to descend to the next level. Yuan's clone materialized beside him. Ready to descend each level one by one? Yuan asked with a smile. Yes, Luo Feng nodded. I'll start by challenging all my opponents. With the Xuanhuan Life and Death Dao, and the highest level destructive power, the Severing Power, Luo Feng was confident that he can fight with Shazhou. His perfected 7 versions of the Xuanhuan Blade Dao bolstered his confidence even further. These opponents would all serve as his whetstones. Then I'll be watching with keen anticipation, Yuan said, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. Luo Feng nodded and stepped forward, passing through layers of space-time as he descended into the deeper 20th level of the Chaos Destruction realm. Yuan watched him leave. According to Xingmang's observations, Luo Feng is refining his second Xuanhuan level Dao. Yuan thought, once he breaks through, the strength of the practitioner faction will surge significantly. Luo Feng also considers the countless origin worlds beyond our territory as part of our kin, Yuan reflected, admiring Luo Feng's actions from 500 epochs ago. By intercepting and annihilating origin world devours world-level Xuanhuan lifeforms, Luo Feng demonstrated his recognition of the countless origin worlds beyond the territory. As the first lord of the practitioner faction, Yuan also understood that the entire faction originally had no territory. It was only through the rise of successive lords that the territory expanded continuously, until it reached the current 3,600 world cluster. In Yuan's eyes, the territory was destined to expand indefinitely. All living beings in origin worlds were, in Yuan's view, part of the practitioner faction's scope. In the future, when I expand the territory, Luo Feng will likely wholeheartedly support it, Yuan thought. With that, he dispersed his clone and resumed his focused cultivation, meticulously refining the origin system, governing the Hunyuan rule circulation path. On the 20th level of the Abyss of Destruction, a howling wind swept across the barren landscape. Luo Feng descended onto the vast expanse of icy terrain and saw a towering figure in the distance, resembling an icy mountain, the Bingfeng Hunyuan ancestor. The Bingfeng Hunyuan ancestor slowly opened his eyes, standing as if fused with the very fabric of this chaos destruction realm. Bingfeng Hunyuan ancestor, Luo Feng said. You are finally here, the Bingfeng Hunyuan ancestor said with a smile, how can I assist you? Based on the Bingfeng Hunyuan ancestor's research, cooperation would at least preserve his dignity. Refusal would likely force Luo Feng to resort to brute force, which would be far more humiliating for him. After hearing the Bingfeng Hunyuan ancestor's friendly tone, Luo Feng refrained from pushing things too far. I would like to request your assistance, along with all the realm envoys, to join forces against me, Luo Feng stated. Ha ha ha. You think facing me and all the realm envoys together will be that easy? The Bingfeng Hunyuan ancestor laughed heartily. Be careful. With that, the Bingfeng Hunyuan ancestor extended his hand. His palm rapidly expanded, radiating boundless coldness that caused it to stretch and grow endlessly. Within the swirling frost, 120 dark figures coalesced. Here I come. The Bingfeng Hunyuan ancestor's palm had grown immense, now half the size of heaven and earth. The colossal hand seemed fused with the icy land itself, its overwhelming pressure surprised even Luo Feng. Bingfeng Hunyuan ancestor can truly rival brother Yuan, Luo Feng marveled inwardly. Unlike Yuan's peerless array formations, Bingfeng Hunyuan ancestor embodied a more perfect, Lord Wulan. Possessing a physique rivaling that of Lord Wulan's formidable strength, his offensive capabilities are even more formidable. Boom tilde 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 tilde. The huge palm slammed down onto the earth, trapping 120 twisting black shadows realm envoys within the fissure to besiege Luo Feng. The Bingfeng Hunyuan ancestor was surprised as he felt the pain in his palm. However, Luo Feng stood motionless, unflinching. He had withstood the massive palm strike and endured the onslaught of 120 realm envoys. After having witnessed the mysteries of all 20 levels of destructive power on the Mountain of Destruction, he now effortlessly comprehended the realm envoys' attacks. Luo Feng's body is like a blade, Bingfeng Hunyuan ancestor realized. His palm felt as if it had struck a blade's edge, already leaving a wound. Within Luo Feng, energy of 1.08 billion origin cores circulated, transforming his entire being into a terrifying blade. Suddenly, Luo Feng moved. A dazzling blade of light pierced Bingfeng Hunyuan ancestor's palm, slicing through the massive icy hand and emerging through a fissure. The radiant blade then soared across the heavens, striking the ancestor's chest and leaving a network of cracks across its surface. But these cracks meant nothing to the Bingfeng Hunyuan ancestor. The icy cracks on his body rapidly healed, leaving him seemingly unscathed. What a terrifying physique, Luo Feng thought. With a shift of his will, the dazzling blade of light swiveled and vanished without a trace. The blade now lurked in the shadows. Invisible and imperceptible. A harbinger of death to all living things. Sizzle. 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 The ice on the Bingfeng Hunyuan ancestor's body began to disintegrate into ash, layer by layer. Although no blade was visible, the ancestor could sense his immense body losing vitality. Where life force fades, decay follows. Luo Feng's previous use of the Hunyuan life and death Dao to sever life force had minimal effect on the Hunyuan ancestors. And he also hadn't placed much importance on this technique. But after combined with his destruction-killing intent, it proved devastating against the Bingfeng Hunyuan ancestor. This invisible blade is causing me even greater harm. The Bingfeng Hunyuan ancestor was startled. A figure materialized in the distance. It was Luo Feng. Luo Feng stood there, slightly confused. Combining the two paths significantly enhances the severing life force effect. All life requires vitality. Without it, there is only death. This technique targets neither matter nor special energies, but solely the vitality. When used in battle, it's nearly silent, yet highly effective. The clash between Luo Feng and the Bingfeng Hunyuan ancestor revealed that the fusion of the two Hunyuan Daos had amplified the power of the severing life force. This seemingly unremarkable, motionless technique held tremendous potential. Great origin destruction seeks the pinnacle of destructive power, crushing enemies with overwhelming force. Severing life force, however, offers another path perfectly suited to me. I need to refine this path thoroughly, I haven't given it enough attention before. Standing there, Luo Feng's mind rapidly filled with ideas for improvement. Seclusion and meditation alone couldn't fully reveal the strengths and weaknesses of a Dao. Combat provides far more clearer insights. Lord Luo Feng, do you want to continue? The Bingfeng Hunyuan ancestor asked amiably. No need. I'm preparing to advance to the next level, Luo Feng replied with a smile. The next level. The Bingfeng Hunyuan ancestor was astonished. According to Luo Feng's usual practice, he would have the realm envoys besiege him for 1 or 2 epochs. However, this was far too swift. With a single step, Luo Feng vanished into the deeper levels of the chaos destruction realm. Although the clash between Luo Feng and the Bingfeng Hunyuan ancestor was short, it had already drawn the attention of countless ancient ones within the infinite Hunyuan space. From this battle, they could see that the proud Bingfeng Hunyuan ancestor, despite his arrogance, gained no advantage against Luo Feng and was even slightly outmatched. Lord Luo Feng's strength is indeed comparable to Shazhou's. It's no surprise the Bingfeng Hunyuan ancestor couldn't match him. This confrontation had been within everyone's expectations. Only a victory for the Bingfeng Hunyuan ancestor would have truly shocked the observers. On the 21st level of the Abyss of Destruction, the Infinite Serpent Hunyuan ancestor also observed the battle. So soon. The Infinite Serpent Hunyuan ancestor watched the black-haired figure descend onto this level of the Chaos Destruction realm, somewhat astonished by how swift his arrival was. After all, he expected Luo Feng to remain on the 20th level for 1 or 2 epochs. Luo Feng looked at the Infinite Serpent Hunyuan ancestor, his fighting spirit surging. Compared to the Bingfeng Hunyuan ancestor, with his formidable defense and simple attacks, Luo Feng found the Infinite Serpent Hunyuan ancestor far more intriguing. The Infinite Serpent Hunyuan ancestor's ability to change size at will, manipulate voids, and act with unpredictable cunning made him a perfect test for his blade techniques. Hitting the Bingfeng Hunyuan ancestor had been expected, as he hadn't even bothered to dodge. But truly mastering his blade techniques would only be proven by striking the Infinite Serpent Hunyuan ancestor. Infinite Serpent Hunyuan ancestor, I ask you to give your all, Luo Feng said, his gaze fixed on the serpent. Accompany you in your practice. The Infinite Serpent Hunyuan ancestor sneered. He could see that Luo Feng was practicing. As the foremost of the 9 sovereigns of the innate Hunyuan lifeform faction, he cared about maintaining his dignity. Why would he assist Luo Feng in his cultivation? Luo Feng shook his head slightly. Then I'll have to force you. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel.